Yo, if you want to build apps in 2025 but don't know where to start or what you should build, this video might just change your life. I've been coding for close to 8 years now, and in that time, I barely shipped anything. For so many of my early years trying to learn coding, I took tutorial after tutorial, feeling that sense of progress without actually taking much away. I know the pain of wanting to build things but never feeling confident enough or like you have the right idea, but I can tell you that there's a set of steps you can follow to actually build and release your first app this year. Despite being a computer science student and software engineer intern, I'm still finding new ways to make time and have fun working on my apps, so I hope this video will be valuable. So if you're just getting started learning to code, it's actually a great thing that you're watching this video because it means you're clear on what your goal is with programming. Having a goal for why you're learning makes it so much easier to stick with it, but also narrows down the things you have to learn. If you want to build apps, you can skip over any content that isn't related to that goal. The most important thing you can do is have a project that you can work and add onto as you learn new things. The trap I fell into when I started that I just briefly mentioned was watching tons of tutorials. It feels really good to follow along with an instructor who's telling you what to do, but this, in my opinion, is only useful to get you comfortable with coding. You should only consume content up to the point that you have enough information to get started with whatever it is you're trying to make. My favorite way of learning a new language or technology is watching one crash course video that gets me familiar with the syntax and how common practices are handled, and then I go off and use that language to build something. You can have one big project that you're continually adding on to, or a bunch of small projects meant to play around with a specific problem. Either one works, but if you vaguely know the eventual app you want to build, taking action on that thing as early as possible is a great idea. The last piece I'll leave you in terms of getting started with learning is use videos and articles to learn the high level concepts, but then as soon as possible, get into working on a real project where you supplement the rest of the implementation, the low level details with things like Google, maybe AI, small YouTube videos, things like that. Now, assuming that you've been learning for a little while or already have the raw skill of programming, the next hardest part of building an app is coming up with ideas. In the last few months, I've been thinking a lot about what app I should build and how to come up with new ideas consistently. And the thing that's been the most helpful was having a single bank of ideas. This for me was a database in Notion, but this could be a piece of paper or a text document, doesn't really matter. It's just about having one place you can go to dump any idea that comes into your mind, allowing you to go back and look at it later. The most important piece with this though, is to write down any idea that comes to mind, not just the ones you think are good. The reason for this is that, at least in my experience, you just need a huge volume of ideas before you can get even one or two good ones. For me, this meant forcing myself almost every night to think back throughout the day and pull out at least one idea from a problem I experienced, and this was really helpful. That point on solving problems though is really important because there's a lot of apps you could work on that might be fun, but they don't actually solve a real problem, and so they're not useful to anybody. Now, as you go through this process of writing down dozens and dozens of ideas and filtering them down to the few that are worth looking at, it's important that you pick and actually stick with one. The idea that I'm currently working on is my first commercial app, Creator Kiwi. The mental model I used when deciding this would be the startup idea I worked on was a mix of what things do I want to work on, how big of a problem does it solve, and what are my unfair advantages? For some context, Creator Kiwi is a co-pilot for content creators and marketers that helps them make better decisions about their content strategy based on what posts are driving the most impact for their business. It helps you choose what content to make based on what's performing well, but also whether or not it's attracting your target audience. The idea came from my own experiences as a creator, improving my content workflow to focus more on the ideas that I felt had potential to do well, but also attract the sorts of people I actually want watching these videos. A big reason I'm even building Creator Kiwi is this is a product that I want a dog food. I want it for myself. I am the ideal customer avatar, and that's where you want to be with your app ideas. Identifying which ideas you have an unfair advantage with, oftentimes just looking at your own personal experience, is super important for building something that's worthwhile. As you're choosing which idea to pursue though, it's important you validate that there's an actual need for this product you want to build. build. I do think this is a lot easier if you're your own customer, but knowing that there are other people who struggle with the same thing helps a lot. I know that for me as a developer, it's really hard to get out of the feature mindset and focus more on the benefits. You want to start from what problem is this going to solve? And in my case, just as an example, it's that when you make content and it might perform well at the surface, you don't actually know, is that having the impact I wanted to on my business? So Creator Kiwi will surface the data and look at across all of your content, who is clicking to your website, who is downloading your free lead magnet, etc., to really tell you this is the type of content you should focus on, not just the ones that get the most views. Now, something you might think as you're going through this process is that most of your ideas already exist and that building something in a saturated market is a bad idea. There is truth to this, so you should do your own research, but it's my opinion that the fact that other solutions exist mean that people are willing to spend money to solve this problem. So that's only a good thing. Knowing your unfair advantage is really useful here because it can help you to better position yourself against those existing competitors. With that all said though, the truth of the matter is that when you're building your first app, it will probably fail. And your second app will probably also fail. And your third app will probably fail. But the mindset reframing you need to have is that failure is not a bad thing. Every time you ship a new product, you will have learned a ton about shipping a product that you can take with you the next time. And as you're building these products, you'll be exposed to new problems that you wouldn't have been able to find if you weren't building things. So that just gives you better and more informed ideas each and every time. Now, when it comes to actually building your apps, the way I recommend you do it is focus on making your code as modular as possible. What I mean is that as you're writing code, you're thinking about how you can make everything into a reusable component that later on in a different project, you could reuse all of that work and save a ton of time. One of the projects I had before I knew what commercial app I wanted to work on was a dashboard boilerplate. This had authentication, account settings, and a lot of other things that most SaaS dashboard applications would need. When I started working on Creator Kiwi just a couple of weeks ago, that saved me a lot of effort. Tactically, some ways that you can do this are whenever you see yourself repeating code, try right away to turn that into a component. If you're mentioning your product or placing links like your terms throughout the app, consider using a config variable so that that can easily be changed out later. A way I like to look at it is that I'm building out my own component library. I've been using this because I have a monorepo structure, and that way I can reuse buttons and modals across the marketing site and the actual app. I've also built out my own design system with colors and classes, so building out UIs is a lot easier. Next, in terms of the tech stack you go with, it's not actually what you pick that matters, it's that you pick something. Most things at an MVP stage can be done with basically every single language, so finding one that you enjoy and understand is what really matters. Just in case you want some ideas, my stack is Next.js on the front end with Tailwind, Go on the back end hooked up to Postgres, and then various services that I use for hosting, email, and whatnot. I like this combination of tools because I can use Next for the marketing site to optimize for SEO, and then just continue to use what I know for the app. And then on the back end, Go is a really nice language, it's performance, and I like having a separate API from my front end. When you're building out your MVP, design isn't the highest priority, but personally I enjoy it quite a bit, so I take that extra time to make my designs look good. There's two tools I personally use for inspiration, these being Mobbin and Nicely Done, which are both sites that have massive libraries of UI examples sorted by categories like login screens, account settings, marketing pages, etc., and using these have saved me a lot of time. They are both paid, but if you're serious about your product and want to design nice UX flows, I'd check them out. Now, AI tools are getting better all of the time, and as a solo developer, knowing how to use them effectively is kind of a superpower. I use Cursor as my main code editor. I've made a video about my setup with it. It's essentially just VS Code with AI more nicely integrated. It's been great for fixing TypeScript errors, refactoring UI components, auto-completing code as I write it, and sometimes even one-shotting fresh UIs or entire interactions. Claude is by far my favorite AI. I use Sonnet inside of Cursor and use the web app almost every day. As you're using these AI tools, you do want to make sure you actually know what's going on, because trying to debug a random stupid mistake an AI made 2 months ago, it's gonna be pretty tough. Now, I've talked about how I go about building an app, but there comes a time where you actually have to launch it. I like the concept of a minimum viable product that everyone defines differently, but I like to look at it as what is the simplest product I could build that still solves the end problem? This isn't going to be the most efficient way of doing it, but it's enough to be valuable to someone, get it in people's hands for feedback, and further validate whether you should continue improving it. With that, having clear deadlines and a scope is very important. I'm guilty of not thinking too deeply about this, but even just going into Notion for a couple of hours and writing down what you want to build is a great first step. Once you start breaking it down into what you want to do in 1 or 2 months, you realize how focused you have to be. I think that before you ship your MVP, it's a good idea to create a landing page where people can learn about the product and sign up to a waitlist to be notified. This is something I'm doing with Creator Kiwi. Shameless plug, I know, but this is meant to show the problem I'm solving and get anyone who's interested in it to tell me that. I'm using Next.js for the landing page because I enjoy coding and I want to have as much customization as possible, but Framer is also a great tool for building landing pages, and they have tons of templates you can use. The basic structure I use for landing pages is a hero section that quickly describes what the product is, who it's for, and the problem it helps solve. Then, if you're not launched, having an email sign-up form is really all you need. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is how to market your app. Building a great product is something you need to keep users, but in order for them to find out about what you're building, you have to tell them. Transparently, this is the area of building I know the least about, but on this channel, I'm trying to document the things I'm learning as I build cool shit. This video itself is kind of marketing, so that idea of building in public is a great way to get free eyeballs on the thing you're building. SEO is another idea I'm learning about right now, and even in the age of AI, all these models will still look at search results to figure out who's an authority, so this is something I really want to focus on. This isn't just blog articles, it can also be free tools or really anything that satisfies what people are searching for relevant to your app. The last idea I'll be trying with Creator Kiwi is affiliates, and I think this is one a lot of solo devs forget about, but can be a really powerful way to get other people to talk about your stuff. That being said, if any of you guys have an audience of creators, marketers, or other builders, shoot me an email. Okay, this video is getting way too long, but this is the stuff that I love talking about, and I hope you guys find it valuable if you're trying to launch an app yourself. All right, thanks a ton for watching, and take care.